Mr. Angus, we'll turn to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking to my motion today to invite Mr. Stéphane Guilbeault, the Minister of Heritage, to come to the Ethics Privacy Committee to testify on the plans that are being led through the Heritage Department to deal with the allegations of non-consensual sexual assault videos that exist on Pornhub. We were informed by Security Minister Bill Blair at the April 12th ethics meeting that the government of Mr. Trudeau will, quote, introduce legislation to create a new regulator that will ensure online platforms remove harmful content, including depictions of child sexual exploitation and intimate images that are shared without consent. That public safety and other departments are working on this proposed legislation with Canadian Heritage, which leads this effort. But we have had no indication of what this new regulator is, and I think we need clarity. I would just step back a minute and say this all stems from the December 2020 reports that came out of the United States on horrific abuse of children and sexual assault victims on Pornhub, a company that is based in Canada. We began our study at that time to see if our laws were insufficient, if there was a problem. We asked the RCMP to come. The RCMP have made it clear that they are not moving forward with allegations against Pornhub. They've talked about them being a partner. They've talked about voluntary compliance. We were given, well, I received the RCMP's internal briefing documents in response to the December 2020 article. And in that document, it talks about what next steps have to be done, and it mentions the leadership of the Heritage Department. My office asked the RCMP to send us the blacked out information to explain why the RCMP is deferring to Mr. Guilbeault's office. We were told, my staff was told, that this would breach cabinet confidence. So what that tells me is that after the December 2020 article came out in the New York Times on Pornhub, this issue was discussed at the cabinet of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And a decision was made then to have Mr. Stéphane Guilbeault and the Heritage Department handle this file rather than transferring it over to police or the Attorney General or to public security. And I think this is really important. We cannot finish our Pornhub study without knowing what exactly is the government's plan, because we have Bill C-10 right now that Mr. Guilbeault is in charge of. And under C-10, the government, I think, shocked everybody when they decided to put user-generated content under C-10. I've talked to many arts organizations who are shocked that Bill C-10 includes user-generated content. It is nothing that the artists community have wanted. They want Facebook and Google to pay their share. So where is this user-generated content coming from? Is this to address the allegations that the survivors brought to us on Pornhub? If that is the case, then Mr. Guilbeault needs to explain that, because I don't think you could disrespect survivors in any more of an egregious fashion than to suggest that sexual assault videos of torture of children that was brought forward to our committee is somehow considered user-generated content in Canada. What does that say to survivors? What does that say to the women of the Global South that I have been meeting with who are speaking from Nigeria, Colombia, Spain, France, talking about the sexual assault videos that from their countries that are being posted on a Canadian site? So are the Liberals telling us that they consider sexual assault and criminal acts mere content that can be handled by a regulator? Are they going to handle it off to the CRTC under Bill C-10, or are they going to create a new pornography regulator? I would like to know what that pornography regulator would be, because, again, I had excellent meetings following the debacle of our meetings with the sex workers, and Ms. Lukings provided really interesting analysis of how what we want to do is make sure we hold corporations accountable for what's online, but we don't want to push stuff to the dark net. So if the Liberals have this idea that Mr. Guilbeault could set up some kind of regulator to tell us, I don't know, Canadian content in porn, good porn, bad porn, do we need a regulator, or do we simply need the Liberal government to apply the laws? Because if you look at the laws that we have in Canada, Criminal Code Section 162, that it is a crime to film the private acts of individuals or people without their consent. It is a crime to circulate, to sell, to advertise, or make available the recording. We have a law. Section 163, that sexual videos of crime, cruelty, and violence are classified as criminal in behavior. What we heard from the survivors of non-consensual sexual assault video is that their videos are videos of crime, cruelty, and violence. We have Section 164 that gives the authorities, that would be the RCMP, the power to issue warrants to seize the recordings of voyeuristic videos of crimes, as well as child pornography. We have the mandatory reporting laws, which we have learned that Pornhub has not followed through on. Pornhub has not respected the laws that we have in this country. The Attorney General doesn't seem to even think it applies, because he's not sure if this Montreal-based company is a Canadian company. So if the Attorney General, who lives in Montreal, isn't sure that Pornhub is a Canadian company, even though their address is on Descaries Boulevard and everyone in Montreal who goes to work passes their office in the morning, if he's not sure they're a Canadian company, how are we expected to believe that the CRTC or some kind of regulator is going to handle this? So I think Mr. Guilbeault needs to come and explain to us, what is the government's plan for dealing with issues of sexual violence that have come to our committee on Pornhub? Are we going to ignore Canadian law? Or are we going to establish the CRTC to do this? Is this going to be Bill C-10? Or, as Mr. Blair suggested, they're going to create a new regulator. I think Mr. Guilbeault needs to come and inform us so we can actually finish a report on what Parliament needs to do to address these disturbing allegations of brutality and non-consensual sexual assault of women from not just Canada, but around the world. We need to be able to respond to those survivors and to the Canadian people that we've done our job, and we cannot do that job without Mr. Guilbeault coming and explaining why he is the lead person appointed by the Trudeau government to address these very, very serious allegations. So I'd like to bring forward that motion for a vote.